The first light of morning slid across the surface of the water like a slow-moving ribbon of molten gold. It stretched thin, then widened, revealing the quiet pulse beneath it. The swell lifted in soft, steady curves. Each rise caught the early light and sharpened it. Each fall deepened the shadows below. Kelp fronds drifted in long, delicate strands, rustling as the tide shifted them. A thin mist skimmed close to the surface, blurring the line between sea and sky. Farther out, a lone dorsal fin rose in a clean, silent arc, cutting through the glow before disappearing again. Not many people were awake to see it. The fishermen were still tying knots on the docks. The kayakers were still inside their small rentals, waiting for the sun to warm the shoreline. The tourists were still asleep. Only the ocean and the creature moving beneath it were fully present, fully aware, carrying the first secret of the day in that effortless, gliding motion. If you want to know how this orca, this single creature, became the center of the most shocking marine intelligence story ever recorded, keep watching. And if you enjoy true accounts that push past what we think we know about the animals sharing our world, make sure you subscribe, because what happened next changed the way scientists think about cognition in the ocean. Her story did not begin with a headline. It began with a mistake. A decade ago, a small research vessel named the Vestwind left the harbor on a calm spring morning. On board were two marine biologists, Dr. Lena Rourke and Dr. Daniel Hemsley, known in academic circles for their meticulous data collection and in the local community for their stubborn, unshakable optimism. Their grant proposal claimed they were going out to tag a handful of transient orcas and track feeding patterns. Privately, they hoped to find something more unusual, evidence of intergenerational knowledge transfer in transient females. They didn't know they were about to meet the orca that would redefine everything. The first sighting happened around midday. The Vestwind moved slowly through a patch of deeper water, leaving a muted wake behind it. Lena leaned over the rail, scanning the horizon through binoculars. She had spent hundreds of hours watching the surface for dorsal fins, and she could distinguish species by motion alone. But the movement she saw that day caught her off guard. "Dan," she said, lowering the binoculars. "There's something off about that swim pattern." Off how? Too smooth, too controlled, and too close to shore. They motored toward the disturbance. The sea darkened under the hull, then lightened again. A shape rose just 50 yards from the boat, a dorsal fin taller than any they had seen that season. It was almost perfectly straight, except for a single small notch near the back edge. The fin's height alone told them the whale had to be a large adult male, but the control with which it moved suggested something more, something intentional. Lena raised her binoculars again. "That's not one of our regular transients." Don pulled out his notebook, flipping through sketches and ID markers. No match in this region. The whale surfaced again, closer this time. Water rolled down his black skin in clean sheets. The white eye patch gleamed starkly. He paused at the surface for a breath before gliding down again, maintaining a perfectly straight trajectory. Lena whispered, "He's watching us." Dan frowned. "He's pacing us." And then the whale did something neither scientist had seen before. He positioned himself directly beneath the boat, rising until his dorsal fin cast a faint shadow across the research deck. The Vestwind drifted slightly off-center, rocking just enough to make Lena grab the rail. "What's he doing?" she murmured. Dan leaned over the starboard rail. "It's almost like he wants us to follow." The whale moved ahead, then slowed, almost hovering in place, then moved ahead again. Lena straightened. "He's leading us somewhere, or testing whether we'll follow," Dan said quietly. They made the decision in a single shared glance. Follow him, but cautiously. The ocean had a way of rewarding curiosity exactly as often as it punished it. The Vestwind trailed the orca through a narrow channel between two rocky outcroppings. Seals barked at them from the stones. The swell narrowed, then widened again. Beyond the outcroppings lay a deeper basin, calm and empty. Empty, except for the orca who had led them there. He surfaced again, this time just 20 feet from the bow. His eye patch faced the boat directly. Then he rolled slightly, revealing a long pale scar along his flank. It wasn't fresh, but it was deep wide enough that Lena felt a jolt of sympathy. "Boat strike?" Dan asked. "No," Lena said. "Too clean for that. Too narrow." The whale disappeared beneath them. A moment later, the water grew unusually still, as if waiting. Then another whale surfaced beside him. A smaller one, a juvenile. She carried no visible injuries, no signs of malnourishment. But she moved in a way that felt uncertain. Her path wobbled slightly as she rose and fell. Lena whispered, "She's too young to be on her own." Dan nodded slowly. This is the mother's job. But there was no mother, only the adult male. And in the orca world, males almost never raised calves. They didn't teach. They didn't guide. They didn't take on caretaking roles. It wasn't part of their ecological or cultural pattern. Yet here he was, training her. The calf drifted too far to the right. The adult nudged her gently back toward center. She tried to dive too steeply. He corrected her angle. She surfaced too close to the boat. He positioned himself between her and the hull. Lena raised her hand to her mouth, stunned. "He's acting like a guardian," she whispered. Dan scribbled frantically. "Or a surrogate parent." "But males don't do that," Lena insisted. "This isn't just atypical. It's unheard of." The next hour unfolded like a quiet revelation. The calf attempted a shallow dive and misjudged the angle. The male corrected her. She followed too closely behind him and clipped his fin. He slowed until she adjusted. Every mistake she made, he responded to with precision and patience, not instinct guidance. Lena could barely breathe as she wrote notes. "Dan, we're watching a cultural anomaly. Cultural evolution," he murmured. "He's changing the rules." The orca calf surfaced for air, then lingered near the research vessel. She made a small circle, then another, as if tracing patterns. The adult male surfaced beside her, emitting a long, steady stream of bubbles. She responded by rolling onto her side and matching his movement. Lena felt the hairs rise on her arms. "He's showing her the boundaries of the safe zone." "Boundaries," Dan repeated softly. "Cognitive mapping." For an hour and a half, the Vestvint remained anchored to the moment, suspended between scientific method and awe. Finally, the adult male made one last slow circle around the calf before diving deep. When he resurfaced, he was farther away, facing a broad passage that led back toward open water. He nudged the calf gently with his rostrum, guiding her toward the channel. Then, as they drifted into deeper blue, he paused and turned back. Just for a second, his eye dark, glassy, ancient met theirs. And for the first time in her career, Lena felt a shudder run through her chest. Not fear, not uncertainty, recognition. The male dipped below the surface and vanished with the calf beside him. The ocean filled the silence. Lena exhaled. "That wasn't random." "No," Dan agreed. "He wanted us to see them. He wanted us to understand." They documented every detail, submitted an immediate report to the Regional Marine Institute, recorded theories that felt radical, even on paper. But nothing prepared them for what came next. 2 weeks later, a viral video surfaced online grainy, shot from the deck of a small sailboat. In it, the same tall dorsal fin emerged beside a disabled vessel. The adult male paced its hull, then disappeared beneath it. Moments later, the sailboat shifted direction, nudged by an unseen force. When the camera panned downward, the orca surfaced again, guiding the disabled boat toward the nearest shore. Commenters argued for days. Some said it was luck. Others said it was misinterpretation. But those who recognized the notch on the dorsal fin knew the truth. It was him, the same male, doing something no one had ever recorded before. That video set off a storm of attention. Claire, a cognitive behavior specialist from a different institute, called the Vestvin team begging for data. A senior researcher at a university asked whether the team had tested brain volume correlations for this specific subgroup of orcas. A documentary producer requested interview rights before they'd even confirmed a follow-up sighting. And with every inquiry, the weight grew heavier. Had they witnessed the first signs of a new behavioral shift? Or the first clear evidence of an orca with intelligence that exceeded every expectation? Lena didn't want to sensationalize, but she couldn't deny the pattern. Every recorded encounter showed the same thing. This orca wasn't just smart. He was purposeful, intentional, predictive. When the next sighting came in, it was from a fisherman who had never believed a word scientists said. He called the research center late one night, his voice shaking. "I've been running these waters for 40 years, he said, and I've seen some strange things. But this whale? This one watches. He looks right at you. He knows things? What things?" Lena had asked gently. The man whispered, "He knew my engine was failing before I did." He described seeing the tall dorsal fin appear beside his boat, circling it. He assumed the whale wanted fish. But when the boat began vibrating strangely, he checked the engine. A cooling line had snapped. Could have overheated. Could have caught fire, he said. But before I even opened the hatch, that whale pushed me toward the bay. Like he knew I wouldn't make it back on my own. Stories like that were easy to dismiss when told once. But then another fisherman shared a similar account. Then another. Then another. Every time, the whale acted not like a predator or even a curious animal, but like a strategist performing predictive analysis. He was learning human behavior, learning vessel cues, learning patterns of stress, danger, and mechanical failure. And the more he learned, the more he intervened. Lena and Dan compiled every report, building a behavioral model that didn't match any existing dataset. If this orca had been born into a different pod, he might have followed normal patterns. Instead, he seemed to have developed an isolated genius and intelligence shaped by unique environmental pressures, freedom from typical male roles, and an unknown trauma that might explain the scar along his flank. The calf he cared for had not been seen since late spring. Some believed she'd moved on. Others thought she'd grown strong enough to join another group. A few whispered darker theories: separation, predation, misadventure. But the male remained, always watching, always learning, always a step ahead. One autumn morning, he did something no orca had ever been recorded doing. He approached a fishing boat during a storm, not to feed, not to play, but to signal. The deckhands described it later in shaking voices. The whale surfaced repeatedly beside them, rolling onto his side, revealing his white belly again and again. They didn't understand. But when they turned back toward the direction he'd come from, they saw a capsized vessel half submerged in the swell. 2 men clinging to debris. 2 men who would have died without the signal. Lena wrote the line twice in her notes, unable to shake the tremor in her hands. He performed an intentional alert. An orca raised an alarm. The news spread farther this time. Marine biologists across the country requested data. A handful of skeptics dismissed the accounts as coincidence. But even they could not ignore the growing frequency of reports. Something was happening along this coastline. Something concentrated around one individual. Scientists began referring to him quietly, privately, by a name that spoke to the magnitude of what they were witnessing: the outsider. But the locals called him something else: the smart one. The story grew, spreading from harbor to harbor, from deckhands to tourists, from marine researchers to fishermen who hated admitting they'd been wrong. And slowly, the truth became impossible to deny. This was the smartest orca ever recorded. But no one yet understood the full scope of what he was capable of. No one understood how far his intelligence extended, or how it would soon collide with a threat that would force him to reveal abilities that none of them, scientists, fishermen, or the ocean itself, were prepared for. That moment was coming, faster than anyone realized. And when it arrived, the line between human intelligence and Orca intelligence would blur in ways that would haunt every witness for years to come. The outsider was spotted 3 days after the storm rescue, gliding along the outer edge of the cove at dusk. The fishermen on shore noticed him first 3 deckhands standing beside a stack of crab pots, drinking from paper cups to keep warm. The sky glowed deep orange at the horizon, fading to bruised purple overhead. Waves folded gently, as if the storm 3 days earlier had never happened. But the men's voices carried a tension that had not been there before. "That's him," one murmured. "The smart one. The one who saved Chris and Joel." They fell silent, watching as the enormous dorsal fin moved in slow arcs, the rhythm steady, almost meditative. It was rare to see a trenchant orca near shore without obvious hunting intent, but the outsider seemed drawn to the coastline for other reasons: reconnaissance, observation, something more complex than prey behavior. As he approached the mouth of the cove, he slowed. He rose in a controlled, deliberate lift, exposing part of his eye patch for several long seconds before diving again. The men exhaled in a near-binding unison. None of them called the scientists that night. They didn't need to. News of an outsider sighting spread through the town faster than the tide. By morning, the Westvin team was back on the water. Lena stood at the bow, binoculars pressed to her face. Her hair whipped across her cheek, but she didn't brush it away. Dan sat at the helm, steering cautiously, maintaining just enough room to avoid crowding whatever they encountered. Claire wasn't on board. She had been assigned to another research expedition farther north, though Lena suspected the detour was temporary. Claire had been too enthralled by the outsider's behavior to stay away for long. For now, though, it was just Lena, Dan, and the fragments of a theory they were still trying to shape into words. "There," Lena whispered, pointing. Dan caught the engine. The sudden stillness felt like an inhale held too long. The outsider surfaced 50 yards away. He rose higher than usual, revealing not just his dorsal fin, but part of his flank. Lena saw the scar again, the pale, clean line that seemed to carry its own story. She wondered what had caused it. A boat? No. Too narrow. Another whale? Possibly. Something else? She didn't like where her thoughts led. "That isn't aggression," Dan murmured. "He wants our attention. He wants something," Lena replied. "But what?" The orca rolled slightly, revealing a flash of white. Then he moved fast, but controlled in a sweeping arc around the vessel. Lena braced herself, though the boat barely rocked. He slowed again, positioning himself alongside the Westvin. Lena felt her breath catch. "Dan, he's nudging us." "I feel it." The boat shifted, not violently, not dangerously, but intentionally. "He wants us to follow him," Lena said. "Again, just like the first time." Dan hesitated. "We need to be careful. We don't know what he's leading us toward." "He's never harmed anyone," Lena said. "He also saved someone 3 days ago," Dan countered. "Exactly." The orca moved forward, stopping just ahead of the bow. When the Westvin didn't move, he drifted back toward them again, then repeated the maneuver. An invitation, or an insistence. Dan exhaled, shook his head, and turned the key. The engine rumbled softly. The orca responded immediately, swimming ahead in a slow, steady line. Lena watched the way he positioned himself, not too close, not too far, guiding, monitoring, teaching them how fast to go. As they cleared the mouth of the cove, the coastline changed shape. The rocks grew more jagged. The waves pulled harder. A trail of kelp drifted past in long ribbons. "Where is he taking us?" Dan asked, Lena scanned the horizon. Nothing obvious stood out at first. No animal in distress. No debris. No struggling vessel. Then she saw something in the distance. Something small, moving unpredictably. "Kayaker," she whispered. A single bright orange kayak bobbed erratically in the chop, its paddler struggling to correct course. Lena lifted the binoculars and immediately felt cold. The kayaker wasn't paddling. He was slumped forward, unmoving. "Done," Lena said sharply. "Go now." Dan throttled up. The Orca accelerated too, maintaining his position ahead of them, weaving smoothly between low swells. The kayaker drifted dangerously close to a cluster of rocks, jutting from the water like scattered teeth. "Hypothermia?" Dan guessed. "Or an impact," Lena said. "Or a medical emergency." The Vestvent reached him just as the kayak tipped. The kayaker slid into the water with limp arms and a deadweight fall that sent a jolt through both researchers. "Grab him," Lena yelled. Dan steered hard to port. The Orca surfaced on the kayaker's opposite side, lifting his rostrum until it nudged the man upward, preventing him from sinking below the surface. Lena leaned over the rail, grabbed a fistful of the man's jacket, and heaved with all her strength. He was heavy, waterlogged, barely conscious. "Help me," she shouted. Dan rushed over, grabbing the man's arm. Together, they dragged him onto the deck. He collapsed in a shaking heap, gasping in shallow, broken breaths. "He's hypothermic," Lena said urgently. "Get him inside. Wrap him. Move." As Dan carried the man into the cabin, Lena turned back toward the water. The outsider watched her. He floated at the surface, eye just above the waterline. A slow exhale rippled around him before he dipped beneath the surface again. Lena whispered, "You brought us to him." 2 hours later, after the kayaker had been transferred to paramedics on shore, Lena and Dan submitted an emergency incident report. They noted the Orca's involvement, though Lena knew how that part would be received. Orcas assisting humans wasn't unprecedented, but intentional search and locate behavior was something else entirely. "If this continues," Lena said as they packed equipment, "we'll need to design new coding categories. This is beyond anything in our datasets." Dan nodded. "We're going to need a bigger scale for intelligence markers and documentation," she said quietly, "before the world finds out on its own terms." But the world was already watching. The kayaker's brother posted a message online thanking a mysterious whale for saving his sibling. The story spread. The comments escalated. Someone linked the older sailboat rescue video. Someone else posted a shaky clip from a fishing boat showing a massive dorsal fin pacing a disabled vessel at dusk. The outsider was becoming a legend. Videos, posts, fragments of sightings. Half-accurate retellings circulating through the digital world. Some people laughed, some marveled, some doubted, but others, especially those who knew the water, felt something else. A shift, a stir, a question rising up from the depths. What did this Orca know? And what else was he capable of? One evening, after a long day of interviews and paperwork, Lena sat alone in her apartment, overlooking the marina. Her notebook lay open on the table, beside a cold cup of tea. She'd written the same line 5 times, unable to move past it. "He anticipates." She tapped her pen thoughtfully. Anticipation meant predictive cognition. Predictive cognition meant environmental modeling. That level of modeling meant the Orca wasn't reacting to isolated events. He was incorporating new information into a broader internal map of his surroundings. That kind of intelligence had only been documented in a handful of terrestrial animals, and none of them had brains the size of the outsiders. Her phone buzzed. "Dan, you need to get down to the harbor," he said. "When?" "Now." Lena grabbed her jacket, sprinted down the stairs, and reached the waterfront within minutes. Dan and several fishermen stood on the pier, staring at the water with tight, anxious faces. "What happened?" she asked. No one spoke at first. Then Ray, an older fisherman with a permanently sunburned nose and deep laugh lines, nodded toward the bay. "He was here," Ray said. "The outsider?" Lena breathed. Ray nodded. "But he wasn't alone." Lena scanned the water. "Another orca?" "No," Ray whispered. "Another person." The small crowd parted. On a bench near the pier sat a teenage girl wrapped in a thermal blanket, trembling. A paramedic checked her vitals. Her hair dripped with seawater. "What happened?" Lena asked gently. The girl swallowed hard. "I fell from the jetty. A tide caught me. I couldn't get back up." Lena knelt beside her. "Did someone pull you out?" The girl shook her head. "No. Something brought me to the surface. Something big." Her eyes widened. "It was him, the whale. He lifted me." Lena felt her entire chest tighten. "He pushed me toward the rocks," the girl continued. "Not hard, just enough so someone could reach me." The paramedic nodded. Witnesses saw her hit the surface before the whale approached. Lena turned to Ray. "How many people saw?" "Enough," he said grimly. Lena rose slowly, staring at the bay as if the outsider might appear at that exact moment. The surface was calm again. Too calm. Dan approached. "Another intervention." "Yes," Lena said softly. "It's accelerating." Lena swallowed. "Why?" 2 days passed with no sightings. Then 3, then 5. The fishermen started whispering. The kelp cutters started muttering. A feeling crept through the town like fog through the hull's unease, pressure, a sense of anticipation that made no sense. Something was coming. Something the outsider understood before they did. On the 6th day, the sea went still. Lena and Dan stood on the vestment as it drifted near the outer channel, scanning the horizon for any sign of dorsal fins. The swells were unusually low. The tide slow. Even seabirds avoided the deeper water. "Where is he?" Dan murmured. "He's never been gone this long," Lena said. "This isn't migration season." "No." "What are we missing, Lena?" She didn't answer. She was watching something else. A line of fishing buoys, half submerged, moving strangely. Not bobbing. Not drifting. Dragging. Something pulled them sideways with a slow, powerful force. "Dan," she whispered. "Look." He followed her gaze. "Currents?" "No," Lena said. "Something is moving beneath them." A tremor rippled across the surface. Small. Too small for a whale. Too large for a seal. Then the buoy line jerked violently downward, yanking the floats beneath the water. "What the hell?" Dan breathed. Another buoy vanished. The line went taut, then slack, then still. Lena's skin crawled. Something dragged the gear under. That moment changed everything. Because it wasn't a whale. It wasn't an orca. It wasn't anything they had documented in the region. Something else lived in the deeper channels. And the outsider was the only creature who understood it. When he finally reappeared, it wasn't near the cove or the harbor. It was directly beside the vestment. He surfaced with force, not aggression, but urgency, and rolled dramatically onto his side so his eye faced the boat. His movements were sharp, precise, intentional. He was signaling. Lena's breath trembled. "Dan, he wants us to follow." Now, they followed, not cautiously this time. With fear, the outsider led them toward the outer ridge, a place where depth changed rapidly and currents collided in unpredictable patterns. The clouds overhead darkened slightly, though no storm was forecast. The water shifted beneath them, and something surfaced. Not fully. Just enough for the shape to break the waterline in a long, dark, rolling motion. Lena grabbed the rail. "There's something there." Dan nodded, pale. "Something big." The outsider positioned himself between the creature and the vestment. He slapped his tail against the surface, not in aggression toward the humans, but in warning toward whatever lurked below. The dark shape sank again. The outsider followed, diving hard with a powerful stroke. Lena clutched the rail. "He's protecting us," she whispered. "No," Dan said softly. "He's protecting everyone." For the second time in a month, Lena wrote a single line in her notebook that she struggled to comprehend. He understands threat, and he anticipates it. The outsider resurfaced, battered but uninjured. He circled the boat once before heading back toward the deep channel. Lena watched him go. "That was a warning," she whispered. Dan nodded slowly. A line in the sand, and for the first time, the scientists realized the truth. The smartest Orca ever recorded wasn't just intelligent. He was preparing. For what? None of them knew. Not yet. But they would soon. And when the truth surfaced, it would blur the boundary between human cognition and Orca. Cognition in a way none of them, neither scientists nor fishermen, nor the ocean itself, were ready to accept. The outsider was about to reveal just how far his intelligence reached, and just how deep the ocean's secrets truly went. The morning after the outsider drove the unknown creature back into the deep channel, a restless energy settled over Harbor Point. The fishermen moved more cautiously. The gulls stayed farther inland. Even the seals along the jetty barked with a kind of sharp impatience, as if they sensed something shifting beneath the surface. The entire town seemed to wake in the middle of a breath it couldn't finish. Lena arrived at the marina before sunrise, carrying her equipment bag and a notebook filled with theories that made her nervous to even read. She had barely slept, replaying the moment when the outsider inserted himself between the vest vent and the dark shape rising from the channel. The speed, the precision, the urgency. It wasn't random. It wasn't confusion. It was calculated intervention. Dan met her on the dock. His face was pale, eyes shadowed with the weight of too many unanswered questions. "You saw the new sonar data?" he asked as soon as she approached. "I saw everything," Lena said, "and none of it makes sense." He gestured toward the research center. "Alvarez wants us inside immediately. Something happened overnight." They walked quickly along the wooden planks, their footsteps thudding in irregular echoes. Fishermen stopped talking when they passed. A few nodded. A few looked away. A few stared at them with unspoken questions that hovered like fog between them. Inside the research center, the lights were dimmed except for one wall of screens displaying sonar outputs, movement maps, and time-stamped acoustic logs. Alvarez stood in front of them, tapping a pen against his clipboard, jaw clenched. Avery was there too. She looked shaken. "What happened?" Lena asked. Alvarez pointed at a grainy sonar image frozen on the main monitor. A long, distorted shape, too long for a whale, too dense for typical marine readings, crossed the screen in a slow arc. "This is from 2 a.m., he said. "It resurfaced." "That thing?" Dan asked. Alvarez nodded. "We picked up another pulse. Same low-frequency signature. But this time, it wasn't alone." He tapped another key. A second, smaller signal appeared moving erratically, chittering at strange intervals. "Juvenile whale?" Avery guessed. Lena shook her head. "Wrong frequency range." "Boat?" Dan guessed. "No," Alvarez said. "This wasn't mechanical." "What then?" Lena asked. Alvarez turned to her slowly, heavily. "It was mimicking." "Mimicking what?" Dan asked. "Orca clicks," Alvarez said quietly. "But distorted, off rhythm. Wrong spacing." Lena felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Mimicking Orca communication?" "No," Alvarez corrected. "Attempting to. Badly." Silence filled the room. Avery swallowed hard. "You're saying something was trying to communicate with the outsider?" "Or lure him," Alvarez said. "Or provoke him." The thought hung in the air, sharp and cold. Lena stepped closer to the screen. Where was the outsider when this happened? Alvarez pulled up a map. A pulsing blue dot appeared on the display tagged from passive acoustic triangulation. The outsider's movement path traced a fast, jagged line across the trench. He confronted it, Lena whispered. And he was not alone, Alvarez said. 3 other Orcas joined the chase. The recordings are faint, but you can hear cooperative calls. Was there a clash? Avery asked. Alvarez hesitated. Possibly. We need to go out there, Lena said immediately. Dan nodded. We can't just sit here. Avery frowned. It's dangerous. So is ignorance, Dan replied. Alvarez sighed heavily. Fine, but we do this carefully. Minimal interference. And if anything even hints at rising toward the boat, we get out fast. They assembled the minimal gear they needed: hydrophones, long-range cameras, proximity alarms, and flares. Lena grabbed her waterproof notebook, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing against the spine of it. Within an hour, the Vestvent was cutting through the morning mist. The water looked normal. That was the unnerving part. Calm, empty, innocent. But Lena had learned enough to understand that the ocean's surface rarely revealed its truth. You see anything? Dan asked, scanning the horizon. No, Lena said, though her eyes flicked constantly between the water and the monitors. Avery checked the hydrophone feed, hearing faint Orca clicks, very distant. Could be the pod or the mimic, Alvarez added. Lena pressed her lips together. She hated that word, mimic. It implied something learning purely for advantage, not understanding. Look, Dan said suddenly. A disturbance spread across the water, far ahead long, low ripples that didn't match the swell pattern. Lena lifted her binoculars. A dorsal fin cut the surface, not the outsider. This fin was smaller, rounded at the top, a female transient. Then another juvenile surfaced beside her. Members of the outsider's group? Dan asked. Possibly, Avery said. Or allies. They're moving fast, Alvarez noted, following a line. The whales skimmed past the boat without slowing, their bodies slicing the water with synchronized grace. Something has them on alert, Lena murmured. Dan revved the engine slightly. Should we follow? Before Lena could answer, a massive shape surfaced 30 yards behind them. The outsider. His dorsal fin towered over the water like a black monolith. He swam straight toward them, then veered sharply, circling the Vestvent in a tight loop. He's checking on us, Lena whispered. Or warning us, Dan said. The outsider paused on the starboard side, lifting part of his head above the water. His eye patch glinted in the morning light. Lena felt her pulse quicken. He wants something, Avery said. No, Lena murmured. He needs something. The whale dove suddenly, leaving a trail of bubbles. The hydrophone picked up a burst of rapid clicks, dense, urgent, patterned. That's an alert signal, Alvarez said. I've never heard an Orca sequence like that. Then the water shifted. The temperature dropped noticeably. The swell flattened, then bulged again. Something moved beneath the boat. Back up, Dan whispered. But the water to port erupted first. A huge shape surged upward, not breaching, not revealing itself fully, but disturbing the entire surface as if an underwater mountain had shifted. The outsider appeared instantly, releasing a powerful burst of clicks that echoed across the hull. The dark mass sank again. Did you see that? Avery whispered. It was enormous. No shape definition, Dan said. Just mass. They don't want it to surface, Lena said. The outsider and the other Orcas formed a barrier formation. 5 whales in a staggered arc, tails angled downward, bodies vibrating with low rumbling calls. They're holding it down, Alvarez said, preventing it from rising. A shiver ran through the Vestvent as the dark mass pressed against the surrounding water. Then it happened. A sound not audible in the air, but felt in the bones of the hull, vibrated through the boat. A deep, resonant pulse so low, it almost didn't register as sound at all. The mimic, Avery said. It's here. The Orcas reacted instantly. The outsider surged downward in a steep dive. 3 other whales followed, forming a descending spiral. Their calls intensified fast, sharp, tactical. "What are they doing?" Anne asked. "They're communicating position," Alvarez said. "Locating weaknesses. Coordinating." A second pulse vibrated the hull. Stronger. Closer. Something massive shifted beneath the vest vent, sending an upward swell that rocked the boat violently. "Hang on!" Dan yelled, gripping the helm. The boat jolted. Lena landed hard against the starboard rail, gripping the metal. Another pulse. Another swell. The mimic was rising. The Orcas responded with a coordinated strike, the outsider at the lead. Their bodies formed a triangle, diving and circling, emitting bursts of clicks so rapid the hydrophone distorted. Suddenly, the dark shape beneath them jerked sideways, colliding with a shelf of rock hidden beneath the surface. The impact sent a thundering tremor through the entire channel. The creature retreated into the trench. The water stilled, but the battle wasn't over. When the outsider surfaced again, part of his flank was bleeding, a long, fresh scrape marking the skin near his scar. Lena's heart clenched. "He's hurt. Surface injury," Alvarez said. "Not lethal, but significant," Cavery added. The Orcas regrouped, surrounding the outsider with tight, protective movements. The females nudged him gently. The juveniles circled, mirroring concern. Lena watched, her chest tight. "They're tending to him." "No," Dan said quietly. "They're preparing him." "For what?" Avery asked softly. "For whatever comes next," Dan said. The outsider suddenly rose higher than before, his full head breaching the surface in a rare and dramatic lift. He rotated slightly, revealing his eye patch again, staring directly at the vest vent. Lena felt the message before she understood it. "He wants us to leave," she whispered. Dan nodded. "He's drawing a boundary." Avery swallowed hard. "This is his fight." Alvarez spoke with quiet certainty. "The outsider doesn't want witnesses." Dan turned the helm. But as the boat pulled away, the Orcas did something none of them expected. They began to follow. Not aggressively, not to block, but to escort. A protective formation, 3 whales on the port side, 2 on starboard, the outsider behind them, guiding the boat out of the dangerous currents. "They're making sure we get out safely," Lena murmured. "Because they know we saw too much," Avery said. "Or because we're part of this now," Dan said softly. Once they reached safer, more shallow water, the Orcas paused. The outsider surfaced a final time near the stern of the vest vent. His eye met Lena's again. And something passed between them, something Lena had no scientific term for, no research category to contain, no established metric to measure. Recognition, understanding, warning. And the outsider turned and vanished beneath the waves, the rest of the pod disappearing with him into deeper water. Lena didn't realize she was shaking until Dan gently touched her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked. "No," she said, "because this is no longer a study." Avery nodded. "This is something else now." Alvarez closed his notebook slowly. "This is the moment when the smartest Orca ever recorded has outgrown every model we ever built for him." Lena stared at the rippling surface. And something down there knows it. Over the next 2 days, the ocean behaved strangely. The tides shifted unpredictably. Schools of herring moved in chaotic patterns. Seals abandoned their usual resting spots. The fishermen avoided the deeper channels, muttering about instinct and patterns and signs they refused to articulate aloud. Then the outsider disappeared. 2 days, 4 days, 6 days. No sightings, no clicks on the hydrophones, no movements on the acoustic trackers. Nothing. The town grew increasingly on edge. "He's dead?" someone whispered on the dock. "No," another insisted. "He's hunting, or hiding, or preparing." Lena knew better than to guess. She spent hours reviewing sonar data, acoustic patterns, and old research logs, searching for anything that might explain the mimic's origin. She found nothing until the seventh night. A storm rolled in unexpectedly, bringing fast-moving clouds and a heavy wind that pushed the waves into white-tipped ridges. Lena stayed late at the research center, monitoring the equipment alone. At 11:42 p.m., the hydrophone picked up a faint sound. A click, then another, then dozens. The outsider. He was back. But he wasn't alone. Multiple Orcas, 3 adults, 2 juveniles. And then the sound Lena feared, the mimic. A low, rumbling pulse overlapped with the Orca signals. She grabbed her jacket, bolted into the storm, and sprinted toward the dock. Dan was already there, having seen the alert on his phone. "Get on the boat," Lena shouted. "We can't go out in this." Dan protested. "That Orca saved your life once," Lena said. "We're going." He hesitated for one heartbeat. Then he followed. The Vestvent crashed through the waves, rising and falling hard enough to rattle the hull. Spray slapped against the windshield. Wind tore at their clothes. But none of it stopped them. By the time they reached the outer channel, lightning flashed faintly on the horizon, illuminating the chaos. Shapes moved in the storm-tossed water. Large shapes, the Orcas. The outsider was at the center of them, circling in fast, tight patterns, releasing sharp, punctuated calls. Then the water rose behind him. The mimic, a massive dark form, half obscured by waves and darkness, rising too close, too fast, breaking the surface in a rolling shadow that towered over the pod. The outsider charged. Lena clutched the rail, breath frozen. "Dan!" she cried. "Do not get closer." But the Vestvent had drifted into the battle zone. The mimic lunged sideways, creating a surge that pushed the boat off course. The outsider slammed his flank into the creature, diverting its movement and keeping it from hitting the hull. "He saved us." Dan shouted over the wind for the third time. The waves churned violently as the outsider dove beneath the creature, driving a coordinated attack with the other Orcas. They weren't trying to kill it. They were driving it back, forcing it toward the trench. The creature resisted, surging upward in a movement so powerful it sent a shockwave across the surface. In the days that followed the storm, the ocean felt wrong, emptier, quieter, stretched too thin over something vast and unsettling below. The fishermen moved along the docks with slower footsteps. The research center hummed with a tense, brittle silence. He won't come back. Lena refused to accept it. She spent each morning on the Vestvent with Dan, drifting near the trench, lowering hydrophones into the dark, listening for clicks that never came. Each afternoon, she returned to the research center to analyze acoustic data, hoping for a faint trace. Avery monitored weather patterns and satellite imagery. Alvarez reconstructed the outsider's last recorded movement paths. Fishermen left offerings on the breakwater, small fish, bits of rope, carved wooden tokens, gestures half hopeful, half mourning. On the 5th day, the whales in the outsider's pod surfaced near the mouth of the harbor. Their formation was tight, their movements tense. They didn't approach any boats. They didn't perform greeting displays. They paced the entrance like sentinels, scanning the deeper water. "They're waiting for him," Dan said quietly, as he and Lena observed from the deck of the Vestvent. "No," Lena said. "They're guarding something." "Guarding what?" She didn't answer. The truth was sitting too heavily in her chest. The whales held formation for nearly an hour before leaving again, slipping beneath the surface and dispersing across the channel. The outsider's absence created a gravity that seemed to bend everything around it. That evening, a storm front rolled across the sky in streaks of steel blue and muted violet. Lena sat in her apartment, tapping her pen against the margin of her notebook, staring at the line she'd written in bold, trembling ink. He understood threat. She closed her eyes and replayed everything the mimic rising from the trench. The outsider's coordinated strikes, the way he had shielded the Vestvent from a direct hit. She pictured his final dive, the deliberate angle of it, the way he had positioned himself between the creature and the rest of the pod. It wasn't random. He went after it, on purpose, not to destroy it, to contain it. A knock startled her. She opened the door to find Avery and Alvarez standing there, faces drawn, eyes hollow. "We picked up something," Avery said. "What?" Lena breathed. "The very bottom. That's too deep," Avery said softly. "Even for transient Orcas." "Unless he was injured," Lena whispered. "Or trapped." Dan emerged from behind them. "We need to go." Avery shook her head. "No boat can safely approach that trench after what happened." Lena stepped forward. "We don't have a choice." Alvarez looked at her with a mix of concern and reluctant agreement. "If that signal is him, he's alive. And he's down there for a reason." "Then let's go," Lena said. It took less than an hour for the group to gather equipment and meet at the dock. The wind had calmed. The sky had cleared to a faint, pale silver. The water lay smooth, unnervingly smooth. They boarded the Vestvent. Lena, Dan, Alvarez, Avery, and an additional acoustics specialist named Marshall, who carried a compact array designed for extreme depth readings. As the boat drifted toward the trench, the world felt suspended. No fishermen, no gulls, no orcas. Nothing but the hum of the engine and the unsettling quiet. When they reached the edge of the deep channel, Dan cut the motor. "We're here." Lena exhaled slowly, steadying herself. "Lower the hydrophone." "Is he stationary?" Avery asked. Marshall adjusted the calibration. "Signal strength isn't fluctuating. Could be resting. Or injured." Lena stared at the monitor, resisting the urge to reach out and touch the screen. "Come up," she whispered. "Please come up." Another click. Stronger. Then a faint burst of higher frequency pulses, rapid, rhythmic, purposeful. The water shifted. A faint ripple. Then another. Something large was rising. "Get back," Avery said, grabbing the rail. But the Orcas appeared first. 5 of them, the outsider's pod. They surfaced between the vest vent and the trench protective, urgent. Their behavior was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. They positioned themselves in a line, facing the deeper water, bodies angled downward in defensive stances. "They're blocking us," Dan whispered. "No," Lena said. "They're blocking it." A low vibration pulsed through the hull. The mimic. A shape moved beneath the whale's broad, fast, ascending. The whales responded instantly. The outsider's closest companion, a large female, released a sharp burst of clicks so loud the hydrophone crackled. The shape hesitated. Then the outsider surfaced, but not where they expected. Not in the middle of the pod. Behind the vest vent. He rose slowly, with visible strain. His dorsal fin tilted slightly exhaustion. Parts of his flank bore fresh scrapes, deeper than the last time they'd seen him. His breath came in uneven intervals. "Oh God," Lena whispered. "He's hurt." The outsider drifted beside the boat, eye facing upward, as if evaluating them carefully. Then he emitted a slow, deliberate series of clicks, weak, but patterned. "He's telling us something," Avery said. "What?" Dan asked. Before anyone could answer, the mimic surged upward again, a massive rolling mass moving toward the surface with terrifying force. The whales dove to intercept, but the creature changed direction abruptly, angling toward the vest vent. "Dan!" Lena screamed. "Move!" Dan shoved the throttle, but the swell hit too fast. The boat lurched violently. The rail cracked. Alvarez stumbled. Marshall nearly fell overboard before Avery caught him. The outsider reacted instantly. With one great surge, he rammed the creature from below, redirecting its rise. The impact vibrated the air, though the water absorbed most of the motion. The mimic descended again, retreating into the cavernous trench. The outsider hovered near the boat, releasing weak bursts of sound. Lena leaned over the rail, tears stinging her eyes. "He's protecting us again, even injured." "He knows that thing will target whatever moves," Dan said. Avery's voice was shaky. "He's placing himself between us and it." Another click came through the hydrophone, then another, then a sequence so long and structured that Marshall froze. "Is that intelligence coding?" he whispered. "No," Alvarez said softly. "That's a farewell pattern." Lena's breath caught. "What?" Before anyone could stop her, she knelt at the rail, reaching down not to touch, but in desperate recognition. The outsider moved farther from the boat. The pod closed ranks around him. They formed a tight circle, protective, reverent, supportive. The mimic's shadow appeared again, deep below, closer, faster. Lena whispered, "No, don't go back." But the outsider dove, slowly, painfully, deliberately. His calling sequence faded as he descended into the deeper black. The pod followed, and the water stilled. Lena sank to the deck, unable to breathe. Avery knelt beside her. Dan stood frozen, gripping the helm. Alvarez stared into the trench, expression hollow. "He went back to stop it," Lena whispered. "He's sealing it away." Dan swallowed hard. "He's sacrificing himself." "No," Lena said, wiping her face. "He's choosing." The ocean held its silence. The pod resurfaced 12 minutes later. 5 whales, not 6. The outsider was gone. Lena rose slowly, gripping the rail. The whales approached the boat in a slow, solemn arc. The female who had swum closest to him surfaced and rolled onto her side, eye facing upward. "What does that mean?" Avery asked softly. "It means goodbye," Lena whispered. Another whale rose beside her, lifting its head just enough to reveal the white of its underside. A gesture, a marking, a tribute. Then they all dove together, synchronized, fluid, intentional, and disappeared into the open sea. Lena pressed her hand to her chest. He's gone. Dan lowered his head. He gave everything. Alvarez exhaled slowly. He was the smartest orca ever recorded, and no one will ever understand how much he knew, Avery said. Lena stared at the trench as waves folded into its darkness. He understood threats before we saw them. He predicted danger before we felt it. He tracked patterns we didn't know existed. And when something ancient woke in the deep, he faced it alone. She swallowed the lump in her throat. That wasn't instinct, she whispered. That was choice. Harbor Point mourned in its own quiet ways. Fishermen left offerings on the breakwater. Scientists held a private seminar to archive every documented behavior pattern. Kids drew pictures of the outsider on the walls of the community center. People stopped calling him the smart one and started calling him something else. The Guardian, because that was what he had been. Not just an anomaly, not just a behavioral outlier, not just the smartest orca ever recorded. A protector, a being who saw farther than humans could, who acted not out of impulse but understanding. A mind shaped by the ocean, sharpened by danger, and guided by a kind of intelligence that blurred the line people had always drawn between themselves and the animals around them.